When the landlord bought the house, he couldn't believe how cheap it was. Fixing it up and renting it out seemed like an easy plan for quick wealth. But when things seem too good to be true, they often are. This house had a squatter, and its identity was beyond anything the landlord expected. But before we start our story, smash the like button, make sure to subscribe, and hit the notifications bell so you won't miss any new stories. Undeterred by the Petersons' spooky stories, James focused on the house's potential. He was eager to begin renovations and decided to make one of the bedrooms livable so he could stay on site and save time. Choosing a small bedroom at the back of the house, he spent the day cleaning, repairing, and painting. By sunset, the room was ready, and James felt a sense of accomplishment as he settled into bed that night. The house was eerily quiet, and James found himself listening intently to the silence. Suddenly, a creaking sound from the hallway jolted him awake. Remembering the Petersons' warnings, he decided to investigate with a flashlight. The house revealed nothing unusual, but an uneasy feeling lingered. Back in bed, he heard a rapid tapping sound from the attic, which he tried to rationalize as a raccoon. Fearful, he chose not to investigate further and forced himself to sleep. The next morning, the house was quiet, and the previous night's events seemed distant. However, James noticed several items missing: a cereal box, a can of beans, his hammer, and a bucket of debris. Despite searching the house, he couldn't find them, deepening his unease. James tried to convince himself that old houses were strange, but the thought of spending another night there was unsettling. He resolved not to stay overnight again, opting to commute from his home instead. Treating the house as a project and leaving by sunset seemed the only way to manage his growing dread of the eerie nights. Each morning, James drove to the house, tackling renovations with determination. During the day, the house felt ordinary, bathed in sunlight. Weeks turned into months, and James made steady progress. Fresh paint, sturdy stairs, and a renovated kitchen transformed the house into a dream home. Despite lingering unease, James felt proud of his work. After 6 months, the renovations were complete. James admired the polished floors and modern finishes, proud of his efforts. Yet, a faint unease lingered, as if the house retained some hidden truths. Determined not to dwell on the past, he focused on getting the house ready for the market. The house's fresh coat of paint and inviting interiors attracted interest immediately. As James crafted the house's description, guilt crept in. He omitted the strange events and painted it as a dream home. With so much money and effort invested, he couldn't risk scaring off buyers. "It's just an old house," he muttered, pushing down his doubts to focus on finalizing the sale. Sam and Emily, a young couple, were eager to rent the house. Their enthusiasm made James hopeful the property would finally be someone else's concern. Showing them around, he highlighted the house's natural light, renovated features, and peaceful location, doing his best to mask his lingering unease about its past. During the tour, Sam asked, "Is there anything we should know about the house? Any quirks?" James hesitated but quickly smiled. "Nothing unusual," he lied. "What you see is what you get, a charming, updated home." Though his words felt heavy, the couple seemed satisfied, their excitement masking any doubts James carried. James handed them the lease agreement as Emily skimmed through it. Sam asked, "Did the last owners live here long?" James hesitated but replied smoothly, "A while, but they downsized. It's a big house for 2 people." He avoided mentioning their abrupt sale or their cryptic warnings, determined to push the deal through. As the couple signed the lease, James felt relief mixed with anxiety. He hoped the house's strange history had ended with the renovations. "If you need anything, just call," he said, handing them the keys. They smiled, their excitement palpable. James forced a smile back, suppressing the growing weight of doubt inside him. Driving home, James replayed the day in his mind. Flipping the house was his plan all along, yet doubts haunted him. What if the eerie nights weren't over? He hoped the couple's first night had been uneventful. The thought of receiving a call from them filled him with dread. His nerves eased slightly as he reminded himself, if the phone stayed silent, everything was fine. The phone rang at 6 a.m., shattering the silence. James jolted awake, his pulse racing. Early calls were never good. Dread consumed him as he picked up, already suspecting the reason. His hands shook as he answered. "Hello?" he said, bracing for what was coming. He already knew it wouldn't be good news. "James?" Sam's voice trembled, with Emily sobbing in the background. "We need you to come over," Sam said, panic clear in his tone. James's stomach dropped. "What's going on?" he asked, fearing the worst. Sam's reply was shaky. "The house. It's different at night. Noises. Strange things are happening. We're scared." James listened as Sam described the events. "We heard banging all night," Sam said. "The kitchen was trashed. Food spilled everywhere." James closed his eyes, steadying his breath. His fear was confirmed. James forced himself to speak. "Okay, I'll come over," he said, keeping his voice steady despite his nerves. The drive felt endless as memories of his nights in the house replayed vividly. The creaks, the missing items, and the unease came rushing back. James had convinced himself renovations would help. James arrived at the house, sunlight masking its eerie nature. Sam, pale and shaken, greeted him. Inside, the kitchen was in disarray, with food scattered and cupboards open. Muddy footprints marked the floor, amplifying the sense of dread. Emily, clutching a blanket, asked James about the house's strangeness. James offered a weak explanation about old houses making noises, but even he felt it was hollow. Sam insisted it was more than just noises, and James, feeling guilty, promised to help figure it out. He resolved to stay until they found answers. James agreed to stay the night, sleeping in the spare bedroom, to confront whatever haunted the house. Despite the calm day, the house's stillness at night was unnerving. They prepared by buying cameras and motion detectors, hoping these tools would reveal the truth. Hours passed in silence until, at 2 a.m., faint tapping followed by louder thuds began. James's heart pounded as he scanned the camera feeds, freezing when he saw a shadowy figure in the kitchen. It was a person, not an animal, and fear washed over him. Adrenaline surged as James grabbed his flashlight and quietly stepped into the hallway. He paused at the top of the stairs, listening to the rustling in the kitchen. Deciding not to wake Sam and Emily, he moved toward the stairs, determined to confront the intruder. He spotted a shadow darting toward the hallway and chased after them, flashlight shaking with each step. The hallway led to small rooms with no exits, and James was sure he had trapped the figure. He searched each room, but they were empty. The intruder seemed to have vanished, leaving James confused and frustrated. How could the intruder disappear so quickly? The figure was gone. Returning to the kitchen, he surveyed the mess and felt defeated. He returned to the spare bedroom, frustration and confusion gnawing at him, but resolved to continue searching for answers. James slumped at the desk, staring at the camera monitor. The house was still, with no visible movement. With a sigh, he powered down the monitor and lay on the makeshift bed, thoughts replaying the night's events. "Tomorrow," he whispered, preparing for what the next day might bring. Sleep eluded James, but he resisted letting frustration take over. Tomorrow promised a new opportunity to find answers. In the morning, James met with Sam and Emily to discuss the previous night's events. They listened to his recount of the chase, their disappointment clear. Realizing that chasing shadows was futile, James insisted, "We need to figure out where this person is hiding." It was time to strategically uncover the intruder's hideout. The group decided to contact the previous owners for more information. James called them, explaining the strange occurrences. The elderly couple sounded distressed. "We had hoped the house's troubles would end with us," Mrs. Peterson admitted regretfully. Their concern was genuine, but what they revealed next perplexed James further. "We weren't the original owners," Mr. Peterson revealed, surprising James. They explained that the house was built by another man who sold it under peculiar circumstances. The Petersons had only dealt with a realtor, as the original owner refused to meet them. Tensions surrounding the sale hinted at deeper secrets. James pressed for details, and the Petersons admitted that the realtor's evasive behavior had seemed suspicious. It seemed like something wasn't being said, Mrs. Peterson confessed. They hadn't investigated further and now regretted it. James couldn't shake their words, which only deepened the mystery. When James inquired about the house's past, Mr. Peterson suggested City Hall. "They'll have original records," he said. "Maybe we'll figure out who's been sneaking in," Emily said as they drove. "Let's get to work," James said as they entered City Hall. The grand Victorian-style building gave the trio a sense of purpose. A clerk guided them to the archives, where old property records were kept. James sifted through documents, his eyes catching the name Ernest Wilhelm on the original deed. "This has to be him, the first owner," he said. The date read 1960. He'd be 84 now, Sam calculated. The idea of an elderly man sneaking around stunned them. Emily shook her head. Could he really be sneaking around at that age? James didn't answer, engrossed in the papers. Then he froze. "Look at this," he said, pulling out a blueprint. His face turned serious. "This isn't on the current plans." The older blueprint showed a large hidden space beneath the house, with an entrance from the pantry. "This explains everything," Sam said. Emily paled, realizing this hidden space had allowed someone to move freely in the house. "He never left," she whispered. James closed the file, his hands trembling. "That's how he's been staying hidden." James quickly returned the file. The group moved cautiously toward the pantry. Emily noted the muddy footprints, and Sam focused on the pantry door. They gathered in front of it, bracing for what they might find. James, encouraged by Sam and Emily, opened the door, revealing neatly arranged food. Doubt crept in, but James suggested a closer inspection. As they searched, James noticed a faint line on the wall behind a cabinet. He traced it with his fingers, revealing a hidden panel. He gripped his flashlight and crawled through the narrow passage, calling back to Sam and Emily, who followed. Their flashlights revealed a staircase leading to a basement. The air grew colder as they descended. At the bottom, they discovered a hidden living space with a bed, couch, small kitchen, and even a shower. In the corner, an elderly man sat calmly in a wobbly chair. James approached cautiously. "Ernest Wilhelm?" he asked. The man nodded, acknowledging he had been found. Ernest explained how his family had forced him to sell the house, valuing its financial worth over his attachment. He had sealed off the basement before selling, creating a hidden world for himself, venturing out only at night. Struggling with Parkinson's, his nighttime movements had caused the disturbances. The trio felt for him, but knew he couldn't stay. James gently told Ernest it was no longer safe. Together, they decided to find him a new place to live safely and comfortably. After weeks of searching, they found a peaceful cottage for Ernest near a nursing home. Moving was bittersweet, but James, Sam, and Emily supported him throughout the process. Over time, Ernest adjusted, finding solace in the countryside and forming connections. The trio visited often, bringing meals and sharing stories, deepening their bond into a cherished friendship. As Ernest's health declined, James, Sam, and Emily stayed by his side. Ernest expressed his gratitude, acknowledging they had saved him. The feeling was mutual. The house and its hidden history had brought them together in a meaningful way. Sam and Emily enjoyed their home, now free of secrets, with its mysterious past becoming a treasured memory.